Picture this. You're a cattle rancher in the United States of America, and you just get word that Donald Trump is going to quadruple the amount of imports of beef coming from Argentina. Why? Because he's trying to help their country. Well, he's already given them $20 billion. He's looking at giving them another $20 billion in aid, financial aid, while he's taking away our health care. He's taking away the soybean market from farmers. He's taking away the cattle sales from cattle ranchers. And he's doing it for what? Because he likes the president of Argentina. Is that it? That's the answer? So you want to help their country while you crap all over ours? Yeah, glad we voted you into office.
I want to talk about the U.S. farmers and how they basically voted overwhelmingly against their best interest. So it's estimated that about 70% of rural farmers voted for Trump, despite the fact that they often rely on government subsidies. And I just want to point out that what's happening with these farmers is going to be another big disruption on our supply chain. We've seen these videos on TikTok before with farmers coming up regretting their decision to vote for Trump. And we're kind of starting to see an increase of that again with the government shutdown, delaying aid that was supposed to be sent to these farmers. And then they were just hit with another obstacle with the U.S. increasing imports on Argentinian beef, which concerns me because they have different disease regulations and antibiotic use. So with China reducing their purchases and there being no immediate financial relief for farmers, I think that this will negatively impact us on the stores next year. So pretty soon we're going to see these trade disruptions and labor shortages affect next season's crops and just the overall long-term farm sustainability.
Hello guys, welcome once again to the channel. I hope wherever you're watching, you are having a great time. Many white Americans, as I've always said, voted for Trump for specific reasons. There are those who voted for him because he was strong on immigration. There are those who voted for him because they believed he was going to handle the American economy and inflation in the best way possible. There are those who voted for him because he represented that outsider who was coming in to address the systemic failures that are always seen in the American government. But then right now, if you look at how white America is responding to Trump, they are totally disillusioned. If you look at current pronouncements from Trump that he was going to import beef from Argentina, how on earth would he do that? Yet there are American ranchers who are currently suffering out of the tariff wars that Trump has with many countries. These American ranchers are asking themselves serious questions. Where will we get our pay if what we should supply the American people with is going to be outsourced? Is it that Trump has forgotten who his major base was? Is it that Trump is not even thinking about the American farmer again? How on earth would he turn against people who are his strongest supporters from American rural areas? I believe there could be something wrong out of this, or maybe Trump was just playing all these people and calling himself the outsider who was coming to address the serious issues that American farmers have always been seeing over the years. They have made constant complaints and many have cried online. I want to play for you some clips of them here talking about the challenges they have faced and why they don't agree with Trump in his current move or pronouncement that America is going to be importing beef from Argentina. Let's watch this. I shall come back in the end with my commentaries.
I'm going to tell you I'm starting to get real suspicious of whatever Trump is doing with Argentina. You already know that Trump has blown up the Chinese market for American soybeans. And now Argentina is sending their soybeans to China. And then we bailed out Argentina to the tune of $40 billion. Now look at this. Trump is suggesting that America is going to buy beef from Argentina to bring down prices for the American consumers. Yeah, American beef is high. You know why? Because there's a monopoly. But instead of addressing the monopoly, he's going to import beef from Argentina, who has already taken the American soybean market and has already been bailed out by the American taxpayers. So now we're blowing up the American beef market too? Trump has to be doing the bidding of another country to destroy America. There is no way you can make any of this make any sense.
Okay, so I want to talk to you a little bit about this beef issue from Argentina, right? Few people have been up in arms about this Trump wanting to import beef from Argentina. That's a horrible idea. I mean, it's a horrible idea because it puts American ranchers in a pickle. And those people voted for this son of a bitch. But that's neither here nor there. Okay, you can't blame people for being taken advantage of. But what we need to realize here is that if we start bringing in cattle from places like Argentina, then you're going to increase the ag deficit in the USA. I think there's common sense things that you can do. If you just have to bring in something from, say, Argentina, why don't you bring in, breeding stock, right? So that way we can increase the number of cattle on U.S. soil, right? So you can boost the number of production you have. I mean, we don't export that much beef anymore. Most of our beef is consumed in the USA, so I think less than 20% of the beef that we consume is actually brought in anymore. But that's actually a good thing if you're a farmer and a rancher. Something else, I've heard some people say that's one of the things that you could do is open up federal lands, for grazing, right? Which for the most part, they already kind of do that anyway. They do already kind of do that. And that works fine unless you're in a place like Texas that's already privatized and sold off all this bullshit. And they've sold off every square inch of land they can sell because they're a bunch of greedy bastards. It really doesn't work in places like Texas. And like I say, in other places like, Colorado, Wyoming, Nevada, Idaho, places like that, they do, for the most part, open up federal land. So that's kind of a moot point. But my point here is importing beef from places like Argentina, horrible idea, and it shouldn't be done. And don't blame the people that voted for this idiot. They were taken advantage of. It's that simple. People get taken advantage of every single day, and they're really the victims. And they were victims by a horrible criminal, Donald J. Trump. I believe that. So, don't blame them for their ignorance, okay? Forgive them. Don't blame them for their ignorance. Say no to imported beef. It's like worse than fentanyl.
Hey friends, today we need to talk about beef. And no, I don't mean drama between creators. I mean the kind that you find at the meat counter in the grocery store. For full transparency, I'm going to be referencing this PBS NewsHour interview, and I do recommend that you go read and or listen to the full thing, but for the purposes of this discussion, I'm going to be referencing some specific parts. The first thing that I want to address is this response from Donald Trump that he gave during a press briefing when he was asked if he had anything to say about how U.S. beef farmers are understandably upset about the deal that was recently struck to bring in more beef from Argentina. His response is as follows. Look, Argentina is fighting for its life, young lady. You don't know anything about it. They're fighting for their life. Nothing's benefiting Argentina. They're fighting for their life. You understand what that means? They have no money. They have no anything. So basically he said a whole lot of nothing other than kind of deflecting and ignoring the fact that beef farmers are upset with this deal. Beef farmers who largely voted for Donald Trump during the election. And that is definitely a concern of theirs because bringing in more beef from Argentina is going to hurt their market. The first thing from the actual part of the interview with Buck Werbin, who is more or less a representative of the United States beef industry, that I want to highlight is that he did note that it's not necessarily just about the prices of cattle and beef when it comes to concerns about this deal with Argentina. It also has to do with safety because according to him, Argentina does have a history of foot and mouth disease. Now, I know that this is something that I'm taking with a grain of salt because it does need to be fact checked. But when it comes to industries like the cattle industry, I do know that they take disease and things like that very seriously. And it is important to note that the USDA is one of those departments that has had funding cut and regulations have been rolled back, and we have already been seeing food products needing to be recalled due to safety issues that with stricter regulations likely would not have happened. So it's not necessarily just concern over beef prices and keeping our US cattle farmers employed, essentially. It's also about public safety and health and animal health and well-being. But there is one other part of this interview that I do want to talk about, and that is where they're talking about things that the farmers are hoping for from the current administration. Unsurprisingly, the thing that ranchers are really hoping that the Trump administration will do is remove the protections of the Endangered Species Act from wolves. This is something that the industry has been pushing for decades, ever since wolves got added, and it's something that's constantly a point of contention with ranchers, environmental groups, conservation groups, all of that. Because as you can see in this quote, they blame wolves for unaliving calves. And interestingly enough, they're also blaming vultures, but vultures don't hunt live prey for the most part. They're scavengers, which means that they eat animals that are already deceased. But put a pin in that for a moment, because we're going to circle back in just a second. The wolf issue is something that environmental groups, conservation groups, etc. have always clashed with ranchers over, because as we can see, they blame wolves for indiscriminately going out and snatching their livestock. And the thing is, the data doesn't necessarily back that up. It's been shown in different studies that wolves are more likely to go after their natural prey than domesticated animals. It's also been shown that non-lethal methods of herd protection and predator management are actually more effective than the lethal methods. But an issue here is that ranchers tend to be really set in their ways, and it is a generational thing. It is a generational hatred instilled within them. Does that mean that they can't change? No, but it is difficult. And the thing here is that wolves are a keystone species, and without wolves, we see entire ecosystems get thrown completely out of whack. Just look up the transformation that the Yellowstone area went through after wolves were reintroduced. And that is one of the most dramatic examples, because wolves are a predator species, but they are important. Now, let's touch on the vultures again, because I suspect that what goes on with wolves being blamed really has to do with the same reason vultures are being blamed. So vultures are a scavenger species, meaning they're not actively going out and hunting themselves. But when you come across a deceased calf and you see the vultures eating it, it is a reasonable conclusion to make that, oh, this animal must have been the one that got it. Same thing with wolves. Wolves are opportunistic, so they'll go ahead and eat something whether or not they killed it. And I presume that is one of the reasons that wolves and vultures are being blamed. At the end of the day, what the current administration is doing by bringing in beef from Argentina to essentially bail them out is screwing over ranchers here in the United States, and also potentially introducing serious health and safety risks to the population as a whole. From what I can see through my little bit of browsing online is that the ranchers who largely supported Trump in the election are starting to question their support. But if the administration does succeed in removing Endangered Species Act protections from wolves, I presume that they'll give their support back to the Orange Man. Because, like I said before, this conflict between wolves and ranchers goes back generations. But if the protections are removed and we do lose our less than stable wolf populations, then there's going to be a negative cascade through all of the ecosystems where wolves do have a foothold. So This is essentially a situation where ranchers are being screwed over, and if they get the one thing that they want, then the environment is going to be screwed over. And it is my opinion that we should be advocating for more non-lethal options like livestock guardian dogs and things like that.
Okay, elephant in the room. Everybody's talking about it. No, it's not Group 7. Trump and the cow market and bringing in Argentina beef. We're direct to consumer, so we sell direct to consumer. We have no middlemen in what we do. We are our own preconditioners. We're on feed yard. We do everything, and our pricing structure has been set. It was set 2 years ago. We've been relatively the same the entire time, pretty consistent. And now prime beef in grocery stores has outrun us by $1.50 a pound, if you can find it in the grocery stores. Here, it's always prime. So what sucks for the American rancher is these ranchers that are still going, they've survived floods, they've survived droughts, they've survived wildfires, they've survived crappy cattle markets where you're just barely breaking even, and then trying to hand that down for the future generation and do things different and right. And you finally get a market where you can get ahead a little bit and do some things for the future. You've risked all that to stay in it, and you get a short reward, and then it's yanked out from under you. I understand the fear of that, and that's one of the biggest reasons we did what we did way back in 2016 before COVID ever even happened, was even a thought. And so it sucks for the American rancher if that is the case and what they really try to do. But at the same time, it may not be as much imports as what you think, and it's also not the ranchers, or they're not the ones setting the prices. It's the big four packers. There's a conglomerate that's already paying out because they've been sued for price fixing. So let's start there. And but that's my take on it. We're still going to be here selling beef. So come see us at 830 West Commerce Street, Brownwood, Texas. You can check us out on www.essential-beef.com. And we do ship across the United States. So y'all have a good day. Eat Brown County beef.
Trump told the cattle ranchers to get fucked and like it. And when they all started whining about him importing Argentinian beef, let's get into it. So this account here, Merriweather Farms, they've been over on Twitter kissing Trump's ass for years. I'm going to get out of the way, pause it so you can read it all, and then I'll get my fat face back in here. We love and support you, POTUS, but your suggestion to buy beef from Argentina, blah, blah, blah. I love this part too. On top of all of this, the only chaos is coming from the Department of Agriculture. There is no true guidance, mismatching the copious amounts of photo ops. The cattle ranchers are pissed, and Trump could give a fuck less. Here's what he told the cattle ranchers after they were whining about him importing the beef. The cattle ranchers don't understand that the only reason they are doing so well for the first time in decades is because I put tariffs on the cattle coming into the United States. If it weren't for me, they would be doing just as they've done for the past 20 years. Terrible. Let's see what the cattle ranchers associations think about it and how well they're doing. This is a tweet from the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. Cattlemen and women cannot stand behind President Trump while he undercuts the future of family farmers and ranchers by importing Argentinian beef. It is imperative that POTUS and Secretary Collins lets markets work without interference. If the administration is truly an ally of America's cattle producers, we call on him to abandon this effort to manipulate markets and focus on these things. It don't sound like they're doing too well to me, does it? I love nothing more than when he pisses in his supporters' faces and tells them to enjoy it. He tells them they're doing great when they're not doing great. It's what he does to the entire fucking country all the time. So I fucking love it when his supporters get it thrown right in their fucking faces what is happening in this country. And then they want to whine and cry about it. Look, let me tell you something. You don't owe these people any empathy. No one who voted for Donald Trump deserves your empathy. If they're losing their farms, if they're losing their ranches, if they're losing their health care, if they're losing their food assistance, they do not deserve your empathy. They show no one else any empathy. These people, these ranchers, these farmers, none of these Trump voters gave a fuck if he was harming other people. So do not give them the empathy that they do not deserve.
President Trump plans to flood the beef market with beef from Argentina to help combat the high beef prices here in the United States. Let me tell you why that is a bad idea. For one, the first time in decades, the farmer and rancher is able to finally turn a decent profit and put that money back into their farm and ranch and help keep their ranches alive.
No, because let's talk about this, right? Let's talk about this. Not only did the American farmer at a rate of 2-to-1 vote for a known garbage businessman because they wanted to own the libs, because directly in spite of the fact that this guy has screwed over everyone he's ever worked with. There's not a single person in his cabinet today that I'm aware of that was in his first cabinet because every single one of them got in there to enrich themselves and then found out that it wasn't worth it because he turned on every single one of them to save his own butt. Forgetting the fact that many of them got arrested, went to jail, had to pay fines, right? He's a known crook. And you believed that the proximity you had with hating the same types of people was going to enrich you, and you did not believe that it was going to come for you. All that being said, I've seen multiple of these videos, and they all end up saying the quiet part out loud. But we're finally making money. If you get into farming, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. But in my head, if you get into farming, you get into farming because you want to earn a living and you want to do something that you enjoy, that you're proud of, that you think is important. Because people have to eat. Farming's not 70-inch TV screens. Farming's not fancy laptops or cars or nice shoes. Farming is staying alive. Homes, electricity, food, these things are staying alive. And when something that I used to be able to buy 3 years ago for $5 a pound now costs me $9 a pound in the grocery store. I literally went into a grocery store the other day. And granted, it wasn't an inexpensive grocery store, it was a Publix. But 93% lean ground beef was $12 a pound. In my head, $12 a pound is still $2 more expensive than I want to pay for New York strips. Ground beef. And you're worried about making a profit. Not just a profit, but really making that extra money. We're finally making good money. You weren't making good money before. You wanted to do something that because you weren't losing money. You definitely weren't losing money. But now you're excited because you can drive profits further than you've ever been able to for something that people literally need to be alive. And there's going to be, well, you don't have to buy beef. You don't. Shut your mouth all the way up because everything in the grocery store is too expensive because of tariffs and profit-seeking, nasty behaviors. And this nonsense of every conservative-minded businessman believing that simply because they exist, that they have every God-given right to drive prices to infinity to enrich themselves, regardless of how it destroys everyone around them, that shit has to stop. Because I'm not going to feel bad for farmers. The American farmer is so important. They provide a service. No, you're not trying to provide a service. You're trying to enrich yourselves, and you're mad because something is being done, even though I get it, it's a bad thing, but something is being done because $12 a pound for ground beef is insane.
So everybody's wound up today because Trump says we're going to import all this beef from Argentina. We're going to lower our beef prices because the beef's too expensive here. And I thought I'd throw my 2 cents in. First of all, it's not really a new thing to import beef. We've imported beef in this country for a long time. We import it and export it for whatever reason. In 2024, we imported over 4 billion pounds of beef, and that comes from countries like Brazil, Australia, Canada, Argentina, Mexico, all over the place. So that's not a new thing. What is new, however, is the government getting involved because of the prices and saying the beef prices are too high. We're going to make a deal. We're going to buy a bunch of beef from Argentina, and we're going to undercut the American farmers and ranchers who are finally making some decent money. And that's just, it's a socialist mindset, if you ask me. That's not what I've grown up thinking as an American market, supply and demand. Where did that go? And doesn't make sense, but it is what it is. I'm sure there's political things, geopolitical, global things behind the scenes that, this is just a small piece, basically a small piece to a bigger puzzle, and it is what it is. It's just, if it is what it is, let's call it what it is, and let's go back to country of origin labeling where when someone walks into the grocery store and they can see right on the label, this is American beef, or this is Canadian beef, this is Brazilian, Argentina beef, Australian, whatever it is, because right now there's loopholes that if they ship it in as a carcass and process it, they can ship a carcass in from Argentina or Brazil, wherever, on a container ship and cut it up in America, and they'll call it American beef. Let's get rid of that. If we're going to ship in this Argentina socialist beef, let's call it what it is. Put that back on the label so we all know what we're buying, and if we want to make a choice based on that, we can. Just give us the information. Don't lie to us. Don't screw with us. And I guess another point I would add is this issue. If people are saying, oh, this is going to tip the cattle market and crash the cattle market or whatever, it's going to go way down, and it's kind of at an all-time high right now. And if it does do that, if this does tank, that's going to stick in people's minds for a long, long time. You're going to have generations from now, people are going to remember, oh, you remember back in 2025, the prices were so high, and then the government undercut it and it tanked, and they'll do it again. And so then you're always going to have that in the back of farmers' minds, ranchers' minds, when they go to invest in land, or they invest in equipment, they're invested in cattle, infrastructure, whatever. That's always going to be in the back of their mind, that if the prices get too good for us, the government can pull the rug out at any time. And that's kind of new, at least from my perspective, kind of new here. And the last thing, I guess, would be, why only beef? Why are we only doing this with beef? Maybe there's more things in the works that I don't know about, but there's a lot of things that are expensive. My insurance is very expensive compared to what it was 5, 6, 7 years ago. And a lot of, internet, power, all that's expensive. I don't see anyone talking about importing insurance companies or power companies from South America to lower our costs on that. So why just beef? Is it because it's food? What's the price on Oreos compared to what it was 7 years ago? We're going to start importing Oreos from who knows where. So that's one question that kind of raised in my head, is why the beef? Why only beef right now? Is that because it's kind of the freest of the livestock markets? The beef is still a lot of individual farmers and small farms, individual processing plants. You can make a go of it, whether you got 10, 20, 30, or 400 cows. And chickens and pigs don't work that way anymore. That's been totally vertically integrated. And I've been wondering for a while now if these super high cattle prices are the start to pushing us towards that, where they're going to convince everybody that, oh, these prices they're too high, you got to sell them. And then maybe they'll flip that on their head with this importing from Argentina, and then the prices will go so down that there's no money in it no more. And people's land costs and equipment costs get locked in at these high prices. And if they cut the prices in half overnight, then what? Who can afford to do it? Not the individual small farmer, not a beginning farmer, it's going to be a conglomerates that can do it, just like chicken and pork. So that's one thing to watch. Anyways, that's my ramblings for tonight. We'll see what happens. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this video is a complete waste of time, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
So I'm getting asked, what about the deal with Argentina? What about it? You got a black swan, you got an elephant in the room, you got a politician that come out and says something about Argentina, and now then everybody's talking about it. Here's the deal. My opinion, and my opinion only, you're going to have the guys in Chicago to do anything they can to drop the market. Yes, they used it as a scare tactic, but where did they get all the heifers at overnight? How did they fill up the pastures overnight with cows? They didn't. The whole thing, ladies and gentlemen, is this right here. They can't produce enough meat to satisfy the consumers. So no, it's a glitch. It's just a bump in the road. No big deal. Cattle prices this week for replacement cattle went up. Guys, if it's that scary that fast, you probably need to sit on the sideline. You probably don't need to get in the game, because the simple fact is this right here. That's just a glitch. That's no big deal. Ain't nothing but a thing. But now then, what's going to take place is they drop the board down. Now then, those guys are going to make a buttload of money, and then it's going to go right back up. That's my personal opinion. Do I think, can I write that down as gospel? No, that's just a personal opinion. What are we doing? We're selling cattle. Cattle here, they're going to Oklahoma. Yeah, Oklahoma. It's got a truckload of cattle going to Oklahoma. We got trucks out there waiting on us. We got cattle being shipped. Guys, let me tell you something. And we got a lot of cattle. Remember our free shipping deal. We got free shipping on cattle. So if you need cattle, give us a buzz, because we got lots of cattle. Small numbers, if you're looking for the small numbers, we don't always put those small numbered cattle out there, but that's just something that we do. Anyhow, just thought I might bring that to you. Bubba Rutherford Land and Cattle, buying and selling these cattle 6 days a week, always closed on Sunday. Y'all have a good day.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. You've heard how American ranchers are crying. The other time we had soybean farmers crying. And many farmers, especially those who had their farm produce in farms during the aggressive deportation that was targeting immigrant workers. And that has been a disaster to American farmers in the greatest way ever. We have seen Trump policies come, and in fact, while he promised to be the one who will address the challenges that farmers have, it seems like his presidency has come to make American farmers become more poor and become the laughingstock of the entire globe, as it were. Why is this happening? There is a strong sense of betrayal among U.S. ranchers because the Argentina beef decision appears to clash with key aspects of Trump's earlier America First trade narrative. Ranchers who supported Trump did so expecting policies that would reduce competition from abroad, bolster domestic production, and protect their livelihoods. Instead, the plan to increase beef imports from Argentina to ease consumer prices is seen as undermining to very domestic producers who backed him. Ranchers also argue that the policy misdiagnoses the real production issue and won't meaningfully lower consumer prices, as beef production is constrained by historically low cattle herd, drought-driven cost pressures, and packer consolidation. Economists estimate import from Argentina make up only a tiny fraction of U.S. beef supply, which is 2% of the total beef imports, meaning that even large increases would likely not reduce prices significantly. Ranchers fear that the real problem is supply constraints and domestic market power, not simply the countries of origin of the beef. And this is a total betrayal to them because they are looking at Trump and they don't like how he's addressing the economic issue that is coming out of this beef production issue. Third, there is anxiety about the signal this policy sends to ranchers' decision-making and investment. Because ranchers make large multiple-year investments based on expectations of future market conditions, a policy that appears unpredictable or contradictory undermines their willingness to expand herds, invest in infrastructure, or commit to long-term plans. The Argentina import proposal is viewed as such a disruptive indicator of policy volatility. Many ranchers worry also about the domestic competitive landscape and long-standing structural issues such as meat packer market power, lack of transparency, and fairness in the supply chain that they believe are being ignored in favor of simply importing cheaper sandbag-type foreign product. They argue the policy rewards foreign producers while the U.S. industry continues to face input cost inflation and depressed margins. For instance, one rancher noted packer concentrations, which is 85% of beef processing, is a far greater threat than foreign imports. Finally, there is the political dimension. Ranchers feel that by endorsing or implementing this policy, Trump is undermining his base. Many ranchers voted for him based on promises of trade protection, boosting U.S. agriculture and putting American producers first. When the policy instead appears to shift away from those commitments, ranchers view it as a fundamental letdown. As one industry group put it, this plan only creates chaos at this critical time, while doing nothing to lower grocery store prices. This is the challenge that most ranchers in America have had to contend with. And because Trump talked about America first when in real sense it seems he didn't mean it, he started to come with policies that he thinks will address the high beef cost in America. This is not going to work, and American ranchers have said they are not happy with Trump, and they are not happy with how he's addressing and dealing with those who supported him when nobody was there to support him. Share your thoughts down in the comment section, and if you're watching us for the first time, remember to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share. Thank you, and let's meet on the next one.